All right, welcome to the next lesson on ancient Rome. So, in the last lesson, which if you didn't watch the last lesson, you need to, we covered mostly the idea of geography. Basically what was the early area of Rome, mostly in the Italian peninsula, South Central Europe. But then as they grow, they become massive and incorporate the entire Mediterranean world, and it's fairly necessary to know what those different areas are, the names of them, because we're going to be covering that as we move on throughout this unit. Now, the other thing that we talked about was just how the major theme that we're going to go over with this unit on Rome, and that is the rise, domination, and fall of empires. The title of the PowerPoint is Rise, Domination, and Fall of Rome, but there's so many things that we can learn from them that applies to, just all of the civilizations. There's a lot of comparisons and concepts like, okay, this happened with them. Well, this also happened with this other dynasty, or this with this other empire, with this other nation. That seems to be a common thread between them all. And the one that is most stark to us, especially as Americans, is with Rome. Mainly because, again, like I've said many times before, we copy, in many cases, the Romans. Not in everything, but in a lot of things. So a lot of times where they fall into certain mistakes, we can fall into certain mistakes if we're not careful. Where they succeeded, we can succeed. And the biggest thing is like where they did not succeed, we hope that we can succeed by looking at their failures. Anyways, one of the things I keep noticing, especially over these last few decades, you could say, you could talk about this forever. Go back to the 40s and 50s. You could talk back to the 20s and 30s. But there's been a lot of things that have happened, you could say, in the last century of United States history where we've done awesome. And we've done things where the Romans weren't able to do it. And there's other things that are kind of on the scary side. It's like, well, it seems like we're falling into the same trap as the Romans. Do we see this? Do our leaders see this? And stuff like that. So it's just interesting to note as we go on. Maybe you can pick things out as you're listening to the lessons as well. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking a little bit about the, first thing I just want to show off, don't necessarily mean show off as well. One of my favorite things ever was when I went to Rome. It was like one of those things to check off of a bucket list. I was able to go. I was on a study abroad in Spain, actually. And then at the end, some fellow classmates of mine, we got together and just went to Rome at the very end of it. We had about a week before kind of Christmas, like our semester had ended out there in Spain, and we had a week and a half before Christmas. So we decided, hey, let's stay in Europe for a little bit and let's go see some places. One of the places we went to was Rome. Unfortunately, we only spent like 2.5 days there. I wish we could have spent more. There's so many more things to see, and I'd love to go back. But I don't know. If you want to see what Mr. Harrison looked like about 20 years ago, well, there you go. I guess it's more like 18 years ago. Definitely had more hair back then. Anyways, go with that. With that picture in the upper left where I'm running towards the Coliseum at night, I'm kind of delirious there. I actually came down quite sick with the flu, or something like the flu, on our airplane ride over, and I was not doing well. But man, when we got to Rome, I just didn't want to let it keep me down, so I wanted to go see it. So when I saw the Coliseum, it's like, oh yeah, I can't remember what the time was, like maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m. type thing. It was just a bit on delirious side. The pictures you see on the right and bottom are the next day. The main picture I like to point out here is actually the one, not the Colosseum pictures. Everybody likes to get their pictures of the Colosseum, and understandably so, but the bottom picture is the Roman Forum. And you don't even have to pay to go there. It's just there. And walking there was, knowing the history that I know and the stories that I know about ancient Rome, like it was just, I don't really have the word right now. It was amazing to walk there because I realized who had walked there before, you could say, the movers and shakers of the antiquities, the decisions that were made, the arguments that were put forth, the things that happened, the murders that happened, you could say, in that case, if we're talking about Julius Caesar or going down to the Gracchus brothers, although that wasn't really the Forum, but around that area. So anyways, and those are people we'll be talking about this unit on Rome. But it is fun when you know about history, when you know these stories and you go visit the places, it it definitely becomes something special. So just something to note. If anybody here is thinking of taking like a senior trip, no, once COVID's all over. So now, one of those things you saw on the bottom right was what's called a triumphant arch. And I showed these pictures just to show how much, just one of the many examples of how we like to copy the Romans with something we don't even need to. Like, this really isn't necessary, but it's just, we see it as a big deal. Go back really quick. That's the triumphant arch. If I remember right, I believe that's Hadrian's triumphant arch. Maybe it's Trajan's. I'm totally forgetting right now. I should know this, and I'm just blanked out in my mind. But anyways, a triumphant arch is something that was built to march your armies through, kind of like a parade, a triumph. When you did something pretty awesome, like I conquered these people, I put down this, I did this, I'm this amazing person. And you only get a triumphant arch, you only get, be able to do a triumph. It's called a triumph if you did something just, again, amazing. So that right there is a triumph that the United States built that is leading into, I believe it's Central Park in New York City. And it's commemorating World War I and how we were a deciding factor in World War I and which side was going to win that war. Which is a big thing. Yet we built an arch for it. Is that really the way we needed to commemorate that? No, not necessarily. But again, we're copycatting the Romans, what they used to do. That's the triumphant arch that Napoleon Bonaparte built in Paris, France. Yeah, he conquered all of Europe. Kind of an amazing feat. This next triumphant arch I find comical, I guess you could say. That's in St. Petersburg, Russia, because, and that's I believe the largest triumphant arch in the world. But the Russians built that because they beat Napoleon. So, anyways, but again, this is a symbol that we don't really need to have, but we do. It's just one of the many, like literally thousands of things that we do today where we copy the Romans, and in a lot of cases we don't really need to. It's like we want to relive that. So that being said, we're now going to move into Rome and its beginnings. Now, I'm actually going to start this off with more the mythological sense, the mythological story of early Rome. It's the most told one, and it's just one of those stories where, like, if you don't know the story about Rome, well, you need to. Is this all about two twins, by the way, Romulus and Remus? This isn't, I don't know how to put this. I could give you a much more historical account, I guess you could say. Take me longer to tell. Or what we think is most likely what happened, kind of taking like what we've done with Egypt, with China, with Greece, where it's like, okay, here's the mythological story and what really happened. Well, that's what I'm going to ask you to do here. What do you think really happened? What's the truth behind this? And I'm not going to give you the whole story here. There's a lot of things I'll be leaving out. But I'm going to give you just the basic story of the foundation of Rome. And maybe you can just kind of look through the clues I give you and see, like, okay, well, what might have really happened here? That doesn't seem like that's possible. So what was really the reality of what happened? And you can look up a lot of things yourself. There's tons of stuff out there where people say, well, this is the real story of what happened, or we believe it's this, or from all the different pieces and records we have here, most likely this is what happened. So anyways, I feel like I'm just talking a little bit too much about that. So on with the story. If you have not heard of Romulus and Remus before, these are twin brothers. Romulus especially are responsible for the foundation of Rome. In fact, Rome is named after Romulus. And it's not named after Remus, and you'll understand why as I get to the story. So now when I tell the story, I open this up usually with a bellwether question that is, okay, why do siblings usually fight? Or why are siblings always kind of fighting with each other? And I do that because most of us, not all of us, but most of us have grown up where we had problems with a sibling at some point or another. Maybe not the entire time growing up, but maybe for a good couple of years. And just most of us have that understanding that, man, there's sometimes it's hard to live with people, live with your brother or your sister. So Romulus and, like, if you have that understanding, then you might understand the story about Romulus and Remus a lot better. So here it goes. Basically, Romulus and Remus live in an area called Latium. Basically where the area of Rome is, but Rome isn't there yet, of course. They're born to a princess, essentially. It's the daughter of a king of the Latins who had heard a prophecy that, well, one day he would be overthrown essentially by his flesh and blood type stuff. The way he understood that is he'd be overthrown by like his grandkids, and he was not going to have that. So he takes this mother or his daughter and turns her into a Vestal Virgin, uh, meaning that you can't have kids, don't even get around men type thing. So as the story goes, it says that the god Mars, who was the equivalent to the god Ares, Greek god Ares, the god of war, um, basically comes down and takes pity on her and, well, impregnates her. So, and basically being pregnant, she has twins in her belly, and when dad finds out about this, pissed, beyond pissed. So he tries to shut her away. Luckily for her, she has friends that help her escape. Um, she's able to have her twins before her fathers are really able to find out what's going on. And then it turns in kind of like a Moses story at this point. She puts the twins in a basket and just floats them down the Tiber River to save their lives. Now, they get caught, I don't know, a couple miles down the way, I don't know really. And a wolf finds them. And it's said that for the next few months, this wolf, who had lost all of her own cubs, takes pity on the two boys and then raises these two boys as her own, as the wolf's own. Now, by the way, I'd just like to make this correlation really quick. I mean, I did this a lot with ancient Greece as well, but I mean, we have tons of things today where it's inspired by the ancient Greek and Roman accounts. In this case, if you're a Harry Potter fan, Remus Lupin. That whole name comes directly from the story I just told you, basically, so far at least. I should be telling it. Maybe I should give you this correlation a little bit later. But Remus, named after Remus, one of the two brothers, Lupin is the Latin word for wolf. So the fact that you have Remus Lupin becoming a wolf, a werewolf in Harry Potter, well, this is where the idea comes from. That's where J.K. Rowling basically got that from. So anyways, they grow up. But by the way, a local farmer finds them and raises them as his own. So the wolf only has them for a little bit. But they grow up and they hate each other, just hate each other. They can't stand each other anyways. And when they get bigger, they're in their teenage years and everybody's got your friends and things like that. If you're a friend with one brother, you cannot be friends with another brother. So Ramus and Remus kind of build their own gangs of boys around them. And one of the major things I forgot to tell was this. When they were born, by the way, it's said that as the midwife was there, just kind of trying to help the princess, help the mom, give birth to these twins, that it was a really hard thing because they're demigods. They're like fighting in the womb of who's going to get out first. And she, every time she's able to kind of just like try to grab one of them, the other one would yank him back in. Who can get out first? And at one point, she's able to grab Romulus and just kind of yanks him out. And it was really hard because Remus, even though he's just an infant baby, but a demigod is really strong, was yanking Romulus back in by his legs. And so as she yanks Romulus out, she actually yanks Remus out at the same time, almost at the same time, because Remus is hanging on to Romulus. So they're technically born at the exact same time, but Romulus came out first. So Romulus is considered the elder brother. And it just pisses Remus off for his entire life that Romulus is the elder brother, the one that receives the birthright, that whole thing. Anyways, imagine that's part of the antagonism, at least the understanding of antagonism in this mythological account. Again, there's a lot of truth to this because we do believe Romulus was a real person. Whether that happened at the birth, highly doubt it. But anyways, they grow up again hating each other. They don't let anybody be. You can't be both of their friends at the same time. They both kind of have their own gangs, and it just keeps going on. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse until at one point, Romulus just decides they're actually in the area where Rome is built, and there's 7 major hills there, and 2 specifically, and I can't remember the names right now. Cisalpine, Transalpine, anyways. Romulus decides to build a wall around his hill, his fortress. He's done with his brother, doesn't want to even watch him or look at him, or just builds a wall. And Remus just sits there and just makes fun of him the entire time. And once the wall is basically about finished, Remus just hops over the wall and continues to make fun of Romulus. And Romulus just has at that point, takes a dagger out and kills his brother. Or actually, I can't remember if he stabs him. basically, whether they wrestle or anything like that, Romulus kills Remus at this point. Remus is dead. Again, going back to that Harry Potter thing, Remus Lupin, well, if you haven't watched it, I'm sorry. He dies. So there you go. So Romulus is the last man standing, and now all of Remus's friends now come over to be Romulus's friends, because everybody wants to be friends with the demigod, I guess. Now, that's not the ending of the whole thing. Romulus is now in kind of control of this area. He has all these young men with him. He's like, hey, I want to start a city. But there's one thing missing. In order to have a city, you need girls. And there is a significant lack of girls in the area. So, sorry, this is just one of those comical accounts from antiquity that, used to be taken. I shouldn't say used to be, but anyways, I'll go down the road I was thinking there. But there just so happens to be another Latin, so ethnically Latin group of people, kind of like the next valley over, called the Sabines. And again, as the story goes, I'm sorry, girls, it says that they had an inordinate amount of girls born to them, and so they were cursed with too many girls and not enough sons and things like that. So, but that girls is exactly what Romulus needs to start a city. So instead of really just going over and asking, he's just like, all right, we're going to go take them. So in the middle of the night, he and his buddies go over and they kidnap all of these young women, all these young Sabine girls. Of course, the fathers and the brothers are beyond ticked. And the picture you see that it's depicting this is where the fathers and brothers come and they start fighting against Romulus and his friends. The battle is getting kind of severe until finally the women actually come out. The girls come out and say, stop it. We don't want to see our fathers and brothers dying. And even though they've only been with Romulus and their friends for a couple of days, like, we really love them. We want to be with them, and we don't want to see them die either. Stockholm syndrome or something there. But yeah, fathers and brothers go home, and Rome is established. You have an area, a good area on the Tiber River. You have the young men, you have the young women, and Rome has begun, named after Romulus. And that's the story for you. By the way, just another connection into kind of, I shouldn't say modern movies. This was out a long time ago, but they still do the plays a lot. If you've ever seen the movie or the play Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, is purely based off of that story of the Sabine women, or the kidnapping of was referred to as the rape of the Sabine women. So if you haven't seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, well, it's just like a Western version of it, an American Western version of it. Well, a lot more lighthearted, though, than what I just told you. Anyways, this video is going already a little bit long. I was thinking going into more stuff, but we'll end this one here. Just this idea of just connections we have between us and the Romans today, how we're influenced by them, and this initial story, this mythological account of the beginnings of Rome. I do need to emphasize this just a little bit more. It's very significant that the Romans view Mars as their patron god, because he's literally the father of the founder of Rome. And if you can trace your lineage back to Romulus himself, then you can claim divine blood, which many people do for the next few hundred years of Roman history. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video.